This will be another episode of a bug pin where I'm going to do a very large long-armed scarab. It's a type of long-armed flower or leaf chafer. They're from Indonesia all the way from Turkey to Himalayas. There's a whole group of these guys. And this one is one of the largest in the world as far as the species go. This one is about 75 millimeters from the end of its elytra to its head. Some get quite a little bit bigger, but in this species, that's kind of the upper end. There are some records where they go well over 80 millimeters, but as beetles, they don't grow as adults. It's uncommon to find the super large into that spectrum, and or the super small. They're going to find them around 60 millimeters for this species. But obviously the characteristic or the giant kind of eye-opening feature is that these beetles have some of the craziest legs. This is a flower scarab or a chafer, and there are other long-armed beetles like the Central South American harlequin beetle. It is a type of spiked collar beetle or a longhorn beetle, and it has a cool pattern on its back, but a completely different situation. These are more like your June bug, flower beetle, peach beetle, those kinds of scarabs where they're like nectarivores or leaf eaters. They have a whole different kind of ecology. But these are going to be some of the coolest, most interesting looking beetles in the world. This one is Euchirus longimanus, or longimanus, depending on how you want to say it. There are a few smaller species, that have really cool patterns, metallic green shields, spots, all that kind of stuff. They'll have a wider head here. This is probably the more monotoned of all the species, but definitely has the record for largest size and craziest arms. So I'm gonna go ahead and pin this guy pretty quick. I hydrated him overnight. It was just effortless to go ahead and articulate him just in my hand, just to see how he was doing. So he hydrated really well. Nothing broke. Very little popping of the joints. And the first thing you want to do is make sure that your specimen is rehydrated, because when you get them, they're often dry, desiccated, very difficult to move, very brittle. And so my system of hydration is I just kind of put them in a little container overnight, wet towel, mostly water in the towel, a little bit of drops of alcohol in the towel, put a board like this, foam board on top of the towel, hydrate the guy. Then in the morning, test the mobility of the ligaments, the joints. He's ready to go. This shouldn't take very long. And let's get pinning. Give me a few seconds to grab some pins, kind of sit down a little bit here and see what I can do. All right. Now, he has a pair of hardened wing cases called elytra. Underneath those, he will have wings. Almost all insects have wings. Almost all beetles have wings. Often enough, on certain beetles, I want to kind of keep the focus on the attributes that are most ridiculous or the most identifying for that particular creature. And so if I pull the wings out, they'll be nice brown, light brown wings, kind of match the elytra. You'll see all the segments of his abdomen. Oftentimes the abdomen's a little depressed because they are dry and dead and they've been in storage for a while, so that kind of collapses a bit. And sometimes it's interesting, but it's usually not as attractive as just keeping the symmetry, the wings closed, and then these giant arms. Plus, it makes it a little bit easier for me to make a smaller frame for him. It doesn't have to be as wide if his wings are all the way out. So, keeping him cool looking, keeping the focus on these ridiculous arms of his. I'm going to leave the wings in on this one, but I do want to have his antennas out and all of that. And I'm going to keep, instead of going wide and flat with these legs, I can make him do the whole football goal stance. I'm going to kind of keep them up in the air just a little bit here. So I'm going to start off with, after moving his legs out kind of where I want them, I'm going to go ahead and get his thorax and his abdomen kind of in position where I want them to end up. This will help me anchor him a little bit, so he's not going to slide everywhere once I start the legs. And then I'm going to put him straight, push a little bit of pressure on his abdomen here, or his elytra, move his back leg where I want it. Once that back leg is anchored, he's really going to be hard he's going to stop sliding around a lot. Then the next thing I do is I anchor the other back leg, and I will kind of find a good symmetrical spot comparatively to the other leg. Now, if you do this a lot, or as much as I do, about a decade and a half now, you'll start to see that these cool little animals are anything but symmetrical. They go into these pupal chambers a couple months after they've been grubs for 2 to 3 years, and anything can happen based on their nutrition, the climate, the temperature inside the pupal cell that they build for themselves. Just the moisture in the ground can cave in their cell, their chamber, their whole situation is still very interactive. And I've seen these animals come out with really short legs on one side, really fat legs on the other with extra spikes. You can get a lot of different changes and aberrations just due to the full metamorphosis process that they go through. And so fighting for symmetry for the aesthetic is something I do try to strive for. I do like to show off everything equal. It looks pretty, it's a nice presentation. But these are, adult animals. They live their full life. They're gonna have scars, scratches. I've seen some with like 3 antennas. I've seen some with extra tarses. These little guys that kind of come off their legs. Like, so you have your femur, tibia, and you have your tarses, and then your tarsal claws. I've seen a couple beetles where they'll have a whole extra strand of tarses, like having 2 feet on one side. So I do want to also celebrate the quirky and the weird, not just pretend they're little robots in a factory and then judge their quality based on how everything is perfectly similar or symmetrical. I think they're a lot cooler when they have those aberrations and quirky things, just like people. So keep his leg out. He's got all these really neat spines. You can hear that, like these little anchors on his legs. And that's gonna have probably multiple reasons for that. Must have given them some use for grip, some use for fighting other males or pushing them around, some use for climbing onto trees, having extra defensive hard spines, all that kind of stuff. And since there's about 500 to 800,000 species of beetle, and they all are very different, nature has decided that beetles are just successful almost any way they look. So I can speculate about lots of things and lots of reasons why they would be this way, but you can also show me a beetle that would be otherwise the opposite of this creature if it wasn't, a scarab as well. Different body types, everything. So let me get this antenna out just a little bit more. So you'll see that the antennas on chafers and scarabs in general are going to be these little clubbed guys. They're not going to be like stag beetles will have a really long arm that kind of comes out from their antenna, and then they'll have little frilled clubs. These guys have little clubs too, but the arm is not very long. These little clubs here can open up into a fan of like 3 to 4 to 5 little sensory antenna paddles. And then like the long horned beetles, which are, represent 30 to 40,000 of the species of just beetle, their antennas are really long. Sometimes people confuse them to be like, oftentimes they'll say, oh, that looks like a cockroach. And it's just a really solid antenna with lots of segments all the way up. So, but this is one of the dead giveaways of it being a scarab, a true scarab, a flower beetle or a chafer. Not unlike the big Goliath beetles of Africa. It's going to have a similar body structure, everything, antennas, all that. And so, for the most part, he's done. I don't really need to do too much more than that. Pull him up here. You can see that he still has his profile. His legs are raised. I did try to push out some of his claws. What's cool about this group of beetles, this subfamily of beetle, is that their tarsal claws have 2 points at the end instead of 1. You'll see most beetles will have a claw that looks like this. These guys will have extra little spikes on the end of their claw. Let me move the needle out of the way here. And you'll see that this claw has two hooks. 2 hooks per foot, or a tarsal claw, which is kind of unique for this group. These long-armed chafers have all of the species. And there you go. This is Euchirus longimanus, and he's one of the coolest, largest long-armed beetles in the world. Okay, guys, thank you.